T³U² theory, the crazy bouncing spring, by Baron Papenfuss. Introduction. Divinity terminates into simplicity. The moment a designer needs all kinds of props to support his theory, which cannot stand on its own leg, it shows he missed the point of balance already. Everything in nature is about getting back to the point of no motion, the 0 point, the mother, the creator. If you are already in the cradle, the point of peace, there is no need to move, no waves, no vibration, no pressure, nothing. But at nothing is also everything. It is the source itself. It is creation. It is the creator. It should make simple sense, therefore, that the first law of T³U² theory states, if you are moving away from the source you are seeking, you are moving in the wrong direction. Obvious. Mother Nature do not fool around with props in natural design. Therefore, law 2. Nature is about balancing pressures. Higher pressures includes attempted motion towards lower pressures, induces. The path of least resistance back to the source is the shortest. Simple. The golden rule number 1. The key. And the key is vibration. If you are losing direction, vibration or waves indicators holds all the answers. Golden rule number 2. Waves is the only answer to any motion. Only waves need no medium to travel. Waves is the creator of mass, space and time. Waves do not need any matter to exist. Waves is the invisible hand holding and moving the paintbrush of the creator. It paints matter wherever it touches. I, Baron Papenfuss, personally got stumped as a junior schoolboy and indoctrinated by the reasoning that light must have a particle component, because a magnet deflects it, and also a prism splits it up into beautiful colors. For many, many years, I believed that. I simply allowed the fact that I could verifiably see a magnet attract a piece of iron to dominate my brain. It stopped my own ability to reason. It turned me into a following sheep. It made me miss the obvious right in front of my eyes. It blinded me into the lie of the atom. It stole my logic. Electrons simply do not exist. The Creator would never waste our time by creating something which has no need. The T³U² theory has indisputable proof already that the electrons simply don't exist. The electromagnetic waves do not have any physical particle component. That the apparent observation of what we call matter is in simple terms actually space as opposed to counter space, which in simplistic terms is actually the aberration footprint of the magnetic radiation, and therefore just a byproduct of magnetism. Nothing, including time, neither space, matter, or actually anything else for that matter, what a tongue twist, can exist without motion. The purpose of this document is to introduce the basics of our assumptions to the general public as a pointer to the fact we want to convey, namely that electrons do not exist. Obviously, the simplicity of the example used and included here would not be satisfactory proof to an Einsteinian atom-dominated quantum mechanical-minded audience. Therefore, this is not an advanced edition for submission. It's actually funny that we will have to use a flawed concept as a basis to prove the correct theory, but we will do so anyway. In fact, I've done so if you took notice, but not yet officially with quantum mechanics. Therefore, being forced into using QM to prove this, I'm going to insist that Q makes a footnote on every future QM deduction to state in small print below, if T³U² agrees. Laugh out. The theme of this document is about a crazy bouncing spring. What does this have to do with the statement now that electrons simply do not exist? Well, I'm sorry, I'm very tied up with quantum mechanics, and my intention was to use a simple spring and a curve tied between two base connections as a starting point. You can picture this in your mind. If you pinch the spring somewhere and then releases it, it will transfer that pinch up and down between the two bases until resistance takes over eventually a very long time after. The point would have been that the medium, the actual spring, effectively stays in position, only vibrates. Yet the force of the motion gets transmitted with no need of anything adding any mass to the system. So let's use what I can find to use instead, and I'm sure it would be convincing too. Okay, the wonderful wheel. What has no beginning and no end? One thing man cannot claim to have invented is the simple wheel. The wheel has not even been discovered as far as I'm concerned. The wheel is all around us. No human should claim discovery rights to the wheel. It's too obvious. The wheel of mankind needs to be pushed until it reaches downhill before it will move. The wheel of the creature is the perfect design. It needs no push. It needs nothing because it's vibration. It's from up to down, high pressure to low pressure. It's a wave, it's a cycle. It needs nothing, not even the electron. When the creator moves something to another place, he uses waves. Look all around you, the cycle from beginning to end, from nothing to everything, from life to death, from clouds to rain on mountains, and then from the river to the sea, to the sun rays, to the clouds, to rain, and all over again. It's just a rolling wheel. Cycle of life, a wave in motion. Look at a wave below. I don't know if it moves in your presentation, but you can see that the points on the wave never moves. In this case, a standing wave. But the wave itself transmits the energy. You don't need anything to transmit that wave. No, the points don't have to move. Take a torch and tie it to your bicycle and look at it at night. At daylight you may be distracted and observe a bicycle moving, because you are now standing in the light and you see lots more than what your eye actually trying to observe. But at night the torch will draw only a simple sinus wave like you're seeing on the right here. A wheel in motion is a wave. It's on its way from somewhere to nowhere and back again. The perfect design. Look in the picture on the right. It looks fairly complex. Creation is simplicity itself. However, it can become as complex as you want it to be until you can recognize what it is. So look carefully in the picture. The picture on the right, if broken down to its basics, is a simple wave in motion, a wheel on its way to somewhere. For purposes of this document, we will concentrate on the basics. What we want you to understand is that if you look at the wave, is that it displaces or transmits energy without the medium or source actually moving relative to the transmission. Look at the spring on the right. The spring stays. The wave transmits. The spring only has motion induced, but if an observer misses that point of transmission, it will see that spring is static. Spring could have transferred millions of energy but in its lifetime. But when you look at it from as a part of a video, where a video starts at the end of the beginning of the video and the end of the video, the spring will still look exactly like it looked in the beginning, and there was no mass or particles added to that motion in any moment needed. A cork in the sea is exactly back at the same spot after the wave has passed. A wave can oscillate in a spring forever, transmitting its energy in a cycle. Yet the spring stays in the same place. Yes, it vibrates within that amplitude, within the constraints. Waves. Simple sample waves of wave notion on the right. The answer of almost every question will have a wave at its root. We can and should study waves in its complexity so that we can understand its simplicity. Second dimension waves, like for example on the right, a wheel in motion. We can start by understanding a simple two-dimensional wave so as to apply it to our reality. But our reality is actually the third dimension. In second dimension, a wave is a wheel rolling. In the third dimension, a wave is a sphere, a ball moving. To understand a third dimension wave, think about a smoker blowing out a perfect bubble. His mouth is just a small hole opening and closing, a small to a large circle vibrating. I hope you can see the point here. So to really understand, waves can become complex, and therefore the comprehensive theory will be much more in detail. The cycle of seasons versus non-linear dynamics, simplex versus complex. We can look at the simple seasons as a cycle wave and still see it as a wheel moving, in other words a simple wave. Summer to winter to summer to winter or whatever, January to February, week 1 to week 2, time 1 to time 2, it all stays a simple wheel in motion. We can look at a picture below which describes nonlinear dynamics, and it may start to become a bit more unclear as to what's happening in this case. The point to understand is that no matter how complex something looks, it still stays a simple wheel in motion, a simple wave. Creation itself shows hereby that even creation itself is a simple vibration between simplex to complex, a wheel. The color wheel here, the electromagnetic spectrum. I personally got stumped as a youngster by the so-called undisputable fact that electromagnetic waves must have a mass, particle properties, simply because a magnet bends it and a prism splits it up into the visible spectrum. Yeah, that makes sense. Only now do I understand it should be obvious that magnetic field radiation, a magnet itself, should be attracted, interference, by another wave, another magnet. A flow from a higher region of density to a lower region should fill up a puddle on its way. It's a simple design. Water flowing down from the mountain to the sea will fill up all the pools and the puddles on its way. That's attraction, or whatever you want to call attraction, or positive or charging, negative to positive. Nothing and nobody can prove that the Creator added in any of his design an unnecessary ingredient to any of his concoctions. We simply want to make things complex because we don't like the basics, because then we can't take any credit and create particles. We like to delve deeper and forget the basics. Look on the right. Spherical harmonics. The picture on the right is a progression from the simple second dimension knowledge of the color wheel and electromagnetic spectrum towards more complex third dimension application. Is this complex? No, it's still very basic. Should you always keep in mind that everything is a simple wave. Just as a wheel in second dimension describes a circle in motion, this sample here is a sphere. In other words, a sphere just describes a circle in motion. The point is to get back to the basics. The basics is up and down, vibrations, a simple binary system, fluid dynamics. Nature is not gluons and quarks and the missing Higgs particle. Higgs already created the boson. Should that not be enough of his own creations? The Creator shows us the wave. Just observe it. Show me an electron. I see reality. We want to so much understand electricity as complex, as an electron particle moving physically along a conductor. I obviously have a much more complex proof in T³U² theory, but everything in nature is still just a wave. A displacement of potential as in the picture here right, without the need of adding anything like particles. That guy on the right with his muscles is picking up something, converting it to potential energy which has the potential to fall down again. Simple. Up and down. Binary system. Electricity is just a city. There is no electron. It is just a simple crazy spring, like on the right. If a fly gets squashed against your car window, according to what you think you see, particles, it means that when the fly stopped to turn around, together with the windscreen motion, the car had to stop also. Your brain defies logic. It lies to you about things you don't understand. Until you understand, then you see. The basics tells me you saw a wave. You just observed it as mass.